Okay, I'm live again, finally. I went live earlier and it never made it to, it never published, it never uploaded, so I lost a whole video that I thought was done pretty good and explained a lot of things, so kind of bummed. But here we are again, so let's try it again. I've got everything written down, and the kind of cool thing is you don't have to waste time seeing me write things down, so that might be a plus. So should have looked for it before I started the video. I dropped my pick, and I don't have another one here to show you. Okay, here I got one. Alright, so as you see here, a bunch of weird looking squares. Let me give a kind of like a preface to the lesson and then the actual lesson, so just to get the beginners up to speed. So if you've never seen my channel before, this may look like some weird braille. The core of the major scale is a simple geometric shape core thing. It's this one of these right here. See the repeating pattern of a square with 2 bits on the side. That is your scale that can get you across the fretboard. I can't go into that in too much depth because I have plenty of videos about that on this channel already, so just watch those if you're new. If you want to see a quick example, let me Alright, so we're in the key. We're just going to be in the key of F major here. And just make sure you can hear my voice, which is only coming through on one speaker for some weird reason, but anyways. So you see I'm playing all up and down the fretboard. Playing notes in a key. It sounded vanilla because it was in just basic major, nothing special. Should have done Lydian to make it sound more unique. That was just using these squares, and maybe to show you. Okay, one more time. Let's do F Lydian this time. So same chord, but all I'm going to do is move that pattern down. Come on, freeze pedal. Okay, so here we have an F playing again, and I know that if I wanted to play in Lydian, that's got to be the 4, so it would be here. Square, 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 square. Square, pentatonic shape, Dorian scale, square goes through Dorian, square goes into Aeolian, Aeolian, square. You get the picture. Okay. You something a little more interesting there. Not just vanilla, some Lydian. Anyways, so that was just me playing these little bits all linked across the fretboard. They link diagonally in the octave pattern. And so that's why this is kind of handy. And what I'm showing you today is all the chords, the arpeggios of the chords as they occur in these boxes. Like, here's what stands to reason. If that shape is all 7 notes of the major scale, then there should be one of each arpeggio located inside those boxes. And there most certainly is. And I'll show you kind of how that can, its limitations, but what you can do with it at the same time at the end of the lesson. So stay tuned. A little bit more of a briefing on how all this works, how it could be even possible. Well, consider that there's only 12 notes that you're ever dealing with in the Western music system, okay? And at any given time, to play a Lydian scale or a major scale or any other kind of, pretty much any other kind of scale, but except the pentatonic is 5, but a regular scale, especially everything in the major scale and the minor scale, is 7 notes of these 12. You pick 7, and that makes a key because you're using a peculiar setup of notes. Well, just the same way it lines up in a weird way on the piano, it lines up in its own way on the guitar. And the first and most handy thing about about this shape, and it's not all of these, it's just one of these represents, so it's the same series of notes. So if like this was the key of C, you know, you would, let's put the C here because that's where it always goes. The 1 is always there. C, D, E, F, and G, A, B, C. Anyways, let me clarify. You've got 4 notes right here, so that's cool. You've 4 from 7 leaves 3 more notes to know. So you've knocked out 4 notes of your scale, all across the fretboard, just like that. You only need to know 3 more, and they're located in these 2 side posts here. Now, if you say, your question right there should be, well, Mark, there's 4 boxes there. You're talking about 3 notes. That's kind of confusing, but it doesn't have to be confusing because, like, for example, we'll get to this chord later, but notice that the 3 and the 3, that's the same note. So here, actually, I'll show you like this. This is where this teaching was. Earlier I talked about the 1, right? 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one of these boxes is a repeat. So there's, you get your 3 notes, your 6, your 2, and your 5. 5, 2, 6, 6, 2, 5. Then 1. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, you might say, that 2 looks kind of familiar. Where have I seen that before? Well, that's where you tune your guitar. Say that's the open D string. You've got your D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, and G. And above the G is a D. So, or in other words, you have your A string and your D string. So you have you're tuning at the 5th fret, tuning your open D string up. That's A. This is how I should have done this in the beginning. A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, D. Open D, 5th fret D. So open string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th fret. Make sense? So that being said, it's just so blatantly easy. It's not even funny that how this stuff has been hiding in plain sight all these years, but that's the nature of your fretboard. Now, chords and these triads we're going to talk about. Let's just go over really quick for the beginners. What exactly, how do you get a triad? Because when people were talking to me when I was a new to music theory, and this didn't make any sense to me, they would start talking about triads because they're pretty easy once you know what they are. But I was like, well, where do you get all these notes from? How do you find them? What's a chord scale? How would you even make a chord scale? Okay, so here's how it works. Let's just say here we have 12 notes from C to C. Now we left out all the C sharp, D flat, D flat or D sharp, E flat, F sharp, G flat, G flat, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, B flat. Those are the black keys on the piano. Here we got all the white keys. So, and that makes a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, a scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Back to C. Okay. Now, all you need to do to make a chord scale is to take the first, whatever note you want to start on. So let's say we're going to start on the 1 of our scale. There's 1, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All these, in theory, could have their own number. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. The 5 chord, the 6 chord, and the 7th chord. You'll hear those, or not the 7th chord. The G is the, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's not get lost. Anyways, 1, 3, 5. So in other words, we've skipped a note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to make a chord, you skip the 2 and the 4. So you go 1, 3, 5. You get C, E, G. And you've, oh yeah, I've heard of a C chord with C, E, G before. And then if we want to make a 7th chord, we skip one more and get to the B. C, E, G, B. Let's cover a couple other bases here. So let's say we want to start at the 2 chord. We want to make a D chord. We got D, F, A. That's where D, F, A for a D chord comes from. An E chord is E, G, B. Let's skip and C. Skip the F, you get G. Skip the A, you get B. E, G, B. Pretty cool. So now we know where these chords are coming from. We're going to have D, F, A. We're going to be dealing, any scale does this, no matter what note you start on and what other notes are involved. It's always skip one for your basic triad, skip another one for the 7th. And then when you're getting, you've heard of jazz chords, if you want to get deep here, the 9th, the 11th, that's using the unused notes an octave higher. Okay, so that being said, but we don't need to get that deep today. We're just dealing with triads, and for good reason. So then maybe a 7th note here and there, not a big deal. One thing to note is some of these chords are major, some of these chords are minor. How is that happening? Here's the easy way to know about it. I didn't write all the interval numbers here, but I just started with 1, flat 2, 2, flat 3, 3, 4, flat 5th, 5th, sharp 5th. All I really want to concentrate on, because all we really need to know about is these two right here, the big implicators right here, the flat 3rd and the major 3rd. These are your biggest players in your chord. The 1 and the 5 are your shell. It's your rock, and hence the power chord in rock music is just a 1 and a 5. It's just there. It's solid like a rock. It's rock music. Makes sense, right? If you want to add in a little happy and sad, the very first note you're going to do to make a interesting chord is called a triad. You're going to add the 1, the 3, and the 5. And the 3 is special. This 3 is the implicator for happy and sad. So flat 3, you're sad if you got a flat tire, right? That's your flat 3rd. And your regular 3rd is your happy note. Play them on the guitar and you'll hear this is an A chord with a flat 3rd. This is an A chord with a happy 3rd. This is your D with a sad and a happy. So you can hear the difference between the thirds. That's the only thing that changed between those 2 chords that I played when I played the D and when I played the A. I played the sad version had the flat 3rd. Okay, so to avoid repeating myself, I just want to make it clear if no one gets lost here. Even the beginners. So one way to take note of this is that if we only go 1, 2, and then we have a note, we have the flat 3rd. If we go 1, 2, 3, we basically skip 3 notes and then play the note, we have the major 3rd. So now you can see that if we go C, E, G, well, you can see clearly here it lands on the 1 and the happy 3rd. Let's take a look at the D. To D to get to the F. Now look at that. We don't skip 3 notes. We only skip 2 notes. So that's our, basically, ignore this now. So let's just go with what we know. Flat 2, regular 2, flat third, regular third. So this chord has a flat third. This is a minor. That's why the 2 chord is minor. That's why they're saying the 3 chord is minor, but the 4 chord is major, and the 5 chord is major, and the 6 chord is minor. And this one is an oddball. It's just diminished because it has a flat 5 instead of a regular 5 and the flat third. So it's like a minor chord with a double flat. It's like a car with 2 flat tires. That's why it just doesn't go anywhere. We'll leave it at that for now. Okay, so now that we got an understanding about where chords come from and why there would be, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and why one is major and one is major, one is minor, and how you're supposed to know all this, just play with these chords. There's 6 of them. You memorize them so fast it's not even funny when you start to understand it and start playing around with chords. So 1, 4, and 5, like the blues are 1, 4, 5. Those are all major chords. They don't have to be, for different reasons. And remember, these rules just explain the basics of music theory, but music can do anything. But anyways, let's not get too drifted off the point here. 1, 4, 5 major, then 2, 3, and 6, the leftover guys, are your minor chords, and this is your diminished chord because it has that double flat tire, the flat third and the flat fifth. And hence why the 7th chord has kind of a special function. It always leads to the 1. Doesn't always have to, but in the beginning you're going to want to learn it like that it's basically a leading chord, leading to the 1. It's kind of not going to have too much of a function anywhere else in the beginning. So if you want to get a grasp on music theory, just stop there, let that sink in, and once that's sunk in, then you'll know about the weird things that jazz guys talk about when they talk about this chord and stuff. Okay, so that being said, so there's each chord has an arpeggio, and I wanted to show you this because once I wrote it out, I was really fascinated by the geometry of it all, and I wrote them in a certain way so you could kind of see the geometry. But the neat thing is, while like the 1 has a neat geometry with the 6, that isn't the only chord that has a weird kind of geometrical kind of flip-flop with. You can see how all these chords are intertwined with each other, so let's take a look. Okay, so starting with the 1. Here you have the 1. You always start your 1 chord. It's going to have its 1 where the 1 is. Like if we were on the 2 chord, our 1 would be in one of these 2 boxes. If we were on the 4 chord, our 1 would be there. Our 1 would be here. What chord would it be on? If you said 3 chord, very good. If you said 5 chord, very good. If you said 6 chord, if we started our 1 there. So you can see our 6 chord, 1 is there. Very good. Okay, so taking a look at a couple things, and then we're going to play around on the guitar for a second. So here we're going this way in the box. One thing to take note of is 2 of these chords, the 5 and the 2, only use 1 note of the box, and then we added in a 7th to make it look like they use 2 notes. But every other chord uses 2 notes in the box, and those only use 1. So you're always using 2 notes of the box and 1 of these outside notes. That's the first thing, easy way to start learning and memorizing these little patterns here. So let's take a look at this one. We've got a nice pleasing row here of this note and that note. Now, these little geometric directions here, they make a sound. There's something with them. This is a major chord when you're not when you're in between the 4th and 5th strings, but if you're in between in normal set, the 5 and 6, the middle 2 strings, or the bottom 2 strings, let's just say the top 2, middle 2, bottom 2, it's going to make a major third. Hence why this chord has a major third interval. So it's a pleasing interval. If you go the other way, like say this chord down here, the not so pleasing diminished chord, that is a very, very the most dissonant interval you can find. That's why it was called the tritone and the devil's interval in classical. Like an emergency, an ambulance, all right? So just about as jarring as a simple... Oops, I wasn't showing you the guitar here. Just as jarring as a simple half step. That maybe even has more of an alarm call. So take note of that. We have 1, 3, 5. So we're going to be playing this stuff. If it's the key of C, this shape occurs on the bottom 2 strings at the bottom of what I call the D Dorian shape. And we can even, now we have the square is on the 12th and 13th frets of the B and E string. So here I'd have these 2 notes as the outside edge, the 2 and the 5. So 1, 3, 4, 5, 2, and then the 2 and the 6. Hear how they all sound good together? Played a little extra note in there, but just to bring it back to the where we started, and that's why it sounded resolved. Okay, so in that shape, here is our 1 chord, our 1 arpeggio. So did you see what I did there? If that sounded kind of musical and you want to know why, it's because I started out consonant in the, when I played the chord, I added in 1 note, then I might go, I went to a different arpeggio. That's why those notes sounded okay together, but they clashed with the chord, but they're in the scale. So what you're doing is you're creating a very specific dissonance in a very specific place. If people pick up on that and they understand that as a musical phrase then. So in other words, C chord, that was actually in the chord. That G that rang out open there. Might start my phrase there. There I got that 6 in there. And I ended the phrase. In the middle I was also doing what I did there is I went to the 2, went to the 3, went to the 5, six. I might even go to the now those sounded okay together, but they sounded kind of like they want to go. If you were like, wow, that second part went totally with that first part, that's because I played the leading tone arpeggio because I was going to the 1. So what pulls me strongest to the 1? What makes me want to go home? Either the 5 or that 7. I just combined them both. Here's the 7. That's the 5. These are the 3 notes of the 5. So about this one, notice it had that tritone interval. That's what's really creating a dissonance that wanted to resolve to that nice major chord sound. Number 2, that I mentioned I put the 5 in there too. That note from the 7th chord check it out. They share two notes. And just think about that. G, B, D, B, D, F. They share the B and the D. So look at the similarities between these, how the geometry works there. As a matter of fact, you share the tritone in here because you're playing the seventh of the 5 chord. That unique seventh that makes the 5 chord called the dominant 7th chord. It doesn't have the pleasing 7th. When a 7 is right next to a 1, that's the happier 7. Just like the same way the flat minor is before the major 3rd, the flatted, more dissonant 7th is before the regular 7th. So you can see why the 5 chord, if you want to stay in the scale shape, your 7 is going to be a whole step back, but normally for your other 2 major chords, your 7 is just 1 note back behind the 1 of the chord. So let's just look at geometry now. And now we've gone over like why you would want to know this. Now, let me also say that, like, you know, this is the drawback here. This is a somewhat limited way of knowing chord tones, and they don't always sound the best as knowing like spread voicings and your big chord voicings all over the fretboard. That would be like the cage system. Well, you'll find all these all over the fretboard. And you know, so using the cage system, yeah, you can get all over the fretboard, but at the same time, this is the cage system. The cage system is using all these notes. It's going right through these repeating parts. There's no way to escape this ever, and I mean that. This is the chord geometry. Even though it looks like there's 8 million notes, it's all the same stuff, repeating over and over. So you're playing bits of caged when you play this. So that being said, like, being able to use like the cage system may get you a little more fluid across the fretboard. However, there's times when you're playing little lines, you're noodling around in scales. What this can do is take your noodling, which you can also do by ear, and when you do it by ear, you're pretty much doing this. Another thing, and a final related note to this, if whatever chord you're in, let's say I'm jamming on the 2 chord. So these boxes that are filled in with, these are going to be like your tones that are really with the chord. You can bend the 3 up, you can bend, into the 3. It's going to sound good. But all these blank boxes are going to sound good bent. They're going to sound good as passing tones, but they're not going to sound good to land on at the chord of the moment. So, for example, if I got the 2 chord playing, it sounded good in the beginning because that's where I need some dissonance, but I better not, so it's not going to sound good. Here, let's play it. Never works on the first string. You can't land on that note. You can't land on that note because that's not even in I went right there, no good. So the old trick is, if you land on a really bad note, go up 1 or down 1, because you'll always find a scale note, but you still might not find a pleasing note to land on. In that example, since I went here, might have been better to go backwards, but anyways. See, it doesn't sound good. Those are your tension notes right there. So those are all your bendy notes. So like that, for example, I went off note into two good notes, into the one there. Now when I played that, I was actually just doing I was arpeggiating the six chord over the 2 chord, 1 chord, 7, but back to a note on the 2. On a note from the 2, the 1 of the 2. So see how that works? That'll work the same way with all these chords. Your white notes are your bendy notes, or if you're making a phrase, you're basically starting out on some chord tones, drift away from your chord tones, play something that has to do with these white keys, but they might not sound good if you just kind of play them random. One way to hit these white keys in good fashion, you'll be doing the same thing as if you were just kind of dancing in between the arpeggio and the white keys if you play other arpeggios. So if I was, you'll see, like if I went to the 1, I'd be playing a white key, a good key, and a good key. We'll call that a blank key so we don't get confused with piano. And so let's go over some geometry and then we'll end the video. But now you see like how they sound, what you can do. You can really make phrases out of your noodling lines. Because otherwise you're just, before I was just noodling. And I would land there and I'd be like, and I wouldn't know why, that would just sound like a shit note. Well, that's because even though I knew, I'm like, it's in the scale, but how come it's not working? Because there are certain notes that you don't end your phrase on. If you're in the 1 chord, don't end your phrase on one of these white. It's as simple as that. Those are the middle of the sentence notes. So you might start consonant so people know where you are. And I completed a phrase there. I went away. I went to the E to just really get away from that D, to really create some stress in the middle of the phrase. And I ended up going to that, dancing around all the notes in the D. So let's take a look at some geometry here. So the 1, you can see how that 1, 3, 5 is kind of a exact inversion of this chord here, the 7th chord. And the 7th chord has its own neat geometry. You can play, that's the one you can play either of these D notes. You can do that on the 2 chord too. I don't like to think of it like that so much because the way it goes along with the 3 chord and that arpeggio there, you've heard in like say Gilmore play that a lot. Picks 3 different ones. That'd be up here. So I like that phrase. But anyways, geometry here. Check out the 1 and the 6. So you play 1, 3, 5. This has got the same 2 notes here, and that's C, E, A, C, E, C, E, G. Oh, okay. So the only, difference is the A and the G. And so, that's got its own little geometry. They kind of, flow together. You'll kind of get them under your fingers really quick. Look at how the 2 and the 3 kind of line up with each other. And basically now we're going to think about this. In the scale we have 2 minor chords and we have 2 major chords that kind of follow each other. So it goes 1 is major, but then it goes 2 minor, 3 minor. Then it goes 4 major, 5 major. Then you have that 6th, the natural minor way over there. And the 7th, that leading tone or leading arpeggio into the 1 chord. Back to the 1 chord. So let's go to this 2 and the 3 and see that that lick I just showed you there, that pull off lick, minor 3rd interval there. The 5th is always above a 1. Well, if the same exact chord with the same exact fingering of a chord is up a whole step from this one, like D minor, E minor is up a whole step from D minor, it stands to reason that the exact same arpeggio is there, and there it is right in the square shape, in the whole shape there. The 2 uses this side of the square, and the 3 uses that side of the square. Kind of neat, huh? Now, on the 2, the only reason it uses this part of the square is because we added in the 7th note there. So in the case of this 3, we'd have our 7th right there and right there. Kind of, so it becomes an opposite. So you have a square here, and then 3 open chords in this shape, and then this is basically the opposite. Look at how the geometry works. There's a square here, and there's like the exact opposite. You have 2 white on the bottom and a white there, 2 white on the top, and the white underneath that white in the square. But see how it's like the exact flip-flop? Same thing here. When we have the major chord, we have the but there is a little bit of a difference. But so let's not ignore the 7th and just think about the 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Well, it stands to reason that the same exact shape should be 1 whole step up, and there it is. 1, 3, 5 again, but it's in this side of the shape. Here you're playing on this side of the square, and here you're playing on this side of the square. The only difference is this only had 1 note in there, but we make it look like 2 because we added it in the 7th on this one. So you got that tritone interval, just like the tritone interval in the B. And think about that. I think we went over this earlier. G, B, D, right? Or G, B, D, F. And this is what? B, D, F. So it's basically, the second part of a G 7 chord, and there's the tritone. If it's related to the 7th chord, it's going to have that tritone row in it, and there's that tritone row. Kind of neat, huh? There's other geometry. Look at how the 4 is got some kind of relation to the 1 chord, with those 2 notes happening there. Just basically that one instead of that one. It's got a relation to the 6th chord. This time it's almost the exact notes. If you just played 3, 5, 7, when you play a 6, you're basically arpeggiating a 4 too. So you can learn 6 and 4 together. Just with the 4, you're going to add in go to the 4th note and add that in right there. Kind of pretty neat, huh? Where's that 7th note on a... it'd be here on A. We can add in that if you want. Let me put that in a little lighter. And so, then you have 4 notes that are, tasty notes to play, and you have 3 notes that are off kilter or don't land on or bend these notes. There's more geometry. Look for yourself. Find things that interest you, things that you think are cool. The way that, basically this uses, this box set up with that angle, this box is set up with that angle, this box is set up with that angle. So 1, 6, 4 share a kind of unique thing. The 2 uses a flat, it's just one up and down shared notes. This is up and down, but they use opposite sides of the box. This is the opposites of this, and it's shared. The 5 and the 7 share that. So lots of little ways you can link things up. Another one is basically, I'll put it over here. Sorry if that was probably off the page a little bit, but anyways, like a minor chord has these ones. That would be like, let's say that's the 2 chord. The 4 chord has these ones. So you can see how it's like an opposite part of the square. And then if you move up to your, oops, I'm kind of off screen there. If you move that up to your 3 chord, it's the same thing. The 3 chord, the E, will have X, 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 and then the G chord will have O, O, O as its basic primary interval. And it's just that that will, like, there'll be a, you can add in the 7th for the 5 chord right there. And yeah. And yeah, okay. I'm going to let you go with that. It's getting a little bit too sweaty and hot in here. And I need a glass of water. So those are intervals. Actually, chord tones. And the video is going to be titled The Core of Chord Tones. Right? The Core Geometry of Chord Tones. And there it is. There is actually the Core Geometry of Chord Tones. Hope this gave you some new insights and exploded your mind going, oh my gosh, like I never ever saw that before. That's makes playing lines kind of it puts some rhyme into your reason there, if that makes any sense. So please like and subscribe. Tell some other people about this channel because of the wonderful things I does. Because people are, I'm struggling to get over a certain amount of viewers, and so for some reason it looks like my streaming got locked up. So I don't know, hopefully we're doing all right, because I'm paying a lot of money for this DSL cable, whatever, fiber optic, high speed, whatever. It's not acting high speed. Okay, hopefully we're still live and we're doing all right. I will see everybody later. Please tell someone so I can get over 1,000 subscribers. There's people that got 1 million subscribers, and I don't even think that they explain things for beginners. I don't know how they got to 1 million. Okay, bye. I'm Italian. I never say goodbye very well. It takes me forever. We're still talking as people